A nice lad called Ed. So, I made this makeshift Ouija board on a scrap piece of paper at my English class in school back in 2015-2016. I know that a lot of people warn to never play on this and that it's dangerous, but I did it with my friends. This experience is not terrifying at all. Disclaimer, I did everything wrong with the Ouija board. It was an A4 paper, and with a pen, I just wrote the basic yes, no, numbers, and alphabet. I forgot to write goodbye. I used a 1p coin to navigate around the page. I played it during break time. I placed my finger on the coin and just started out with saying hello. The first round I did it by myself while my friends watched. I said hello, and the first spirit I encountered started spelling Goodb, and I said goodbye, trying to spare its energy, and it zoomed to yes. After this, one of my friends reminded me how I didn't put hello or goodbye on the page, so I was like, ah nah. So I got my pen and scribbled hello on the top and goodbye at the bottom of the page. This time I wanted to be more polite to the entity, so I greeted them with, good morning, would you like to have a discussion with us? And two of my friends joined and placed their fingers on the coin. So there's 3 fingers on the coin now. The entity said hello, and we asked for its name. It was just spelled E-D. So we started calling this guy Ed. We were all interested in why he was here, but we all agreed that we didn't want to be rude to him, as some people don't like sharing personal information to others. So before asking serious questions, we asked if he'd be okay with it, and luckily he was. We thought he was related to our English teacher, but he wasn't. And he didn't even go to the school, nor did he die on the premises. He gave us his age and the date he died, 2008, but had no reason why he was there. Later on, we asked about how he died, and he said a car had something to do with it. He also named where he died, which was a forest nearby our town. One time, we moved on and asked him about his family, and got down to the fact that he had a brother, in which he replied D-E-A-D. At first we thought his brother was dead, as Ed was fairly old himself, but one of my friends suggested, out loud, that Ed's brother is dead to him, to which Ed went to yes really fast, which scared us a little bit. However, Ed is full of banter. For example, he'd throw us off by answering our questions weirdly by going to random letters, in which we'd often ask Ed, are you joking with us? And then he'd go to yes. We also asked him whether he thought he was funny, and he said yes. Ed's a nice lad because he cares about our education, as whenever the bell rang to indicate the end of our break, he'd say goodbye. We even asked him if he cares about our education, and he said yes. One of the questions we asked was whether anyone in our friendship group had a ghost on them, on our finger, on the coins. And it went on the board and went on the edge of the table, pointing to one of our friends, who often said that our house was haunted. We naturally stopped contacting him slowly afterwards. I tried to speak to him again recently, because I wanted to ask him whether he was okay with me sharing the story, but I couldn't find him. So sorry, Ed, if you didn't want me to share your story. Inviting it in. Back in the year 2004, my older sister developed a curiosity for the supernatural, and would secretly play the Ouija board with her friends in our family home. My mother had a few disturbing experiences with Ouija boards and did not approve of my sister playing with one. Around April 2005 was when we started noticing strange activity inside the house. We would wake up to broken plates and cups in our lounge room, things missing or turning up in strange places, tapping and doors opening and closing late at night, with no possibility of anyone being anywhere near those said doors at night. In October 2005, the activity increased. We would hear our names being called by disembodied voices, music late at night, objects move right in front of our eyes, catch glimpses of shadow people moving around the house, and even being touched or grabbed in our beds. I recalled an incident where my brother claimed to have been slapped in the face when he walked into the bathroom late at night, and also claimed to have seen a floating figure coming towards him one night. In November 2005, I saw something that I'm still scared to talk about even today. Because my 4 siblings and I were too scared to sleep in our own beds by this stage, and our stepdad worked nights. My mom put us all in one room with her. I was on a blow-up mattress closest to the door, and I woke up to the sound of the door opening up behind me. I didn't want to look, move, or make a sound to draw it to me, and was hoping whatever came through that door would go for one of my siblings and not me. So I closed my eyes and tried my hardest to look like I was asleep. Whatever this was came straight over to me. When it knelt down, I heard what I assumed was its bones cracking. I was frozen in fear when I felt a hand on my head. I felt its long nails scratching my scalp, and for about a minute, it was just quietly scratching my head, and I couldn't work up the courage to scream until it said, "Stay away from me." I screamed until my mom woke up and wouldn't sleep alone for the rest of the night. My mom found the Ouija board 2 days later and destroyed it, and the activity died down a lot, but not completely. We would still occasionally witness something, but not as often or as scary. I often wonder, whatever the thing was that told me to stay away from it was actually maybe after my sister. All I know is that she invited it into her life, and even now, she has regular paranormal experiences in every single house that she lives in. Planchette and hostel. This is my story, which happened in the year 2011 in Delhi. I have many friends staying there and had got to meet them. I had planned to stay there in my friend's hostel for 2 to 3 days and then come back to my home. That was the time I got introduced to planchette. I heard a lot about the Ouija board and planchettes, but I never believed in it. My friends wanted to carry out the seance and asked me to participate. Out of sheer curiosity, I agreed. We decided to perform planchette that day itself when I reached. We went to a room which was vacant. We made a board with all the alphabets, numbers, yes and no, goodbye and thank you written over it. I used 1 rupee coin as our pointer on the board. We lit the candles and kept 4 candles at 4 corners of the board. We were 4 people: Neha, Nidhi, Richa, and me. We kept our index fingers on the coin and first prayed to the Almighty. Then we started saying in chorus for good spirits to respond to us. We waited for half an hour, but there was no response. Agitated and disappointed, we all said goodbye to the board, burnt it, and then went to sleep. The next day went normally, as we went for shopping and all. After dinner, around 9 p.m., we 4 friends again decided to perform the seance again. We all gathered in Neha's room, as she claimed it to be colder than the rest of the rooms of the hostel. We all prepared the board, lit the candles, and sat with our index finger on the coin. This time, we all prayed to the Almighty, and then started calling out to good spirits. After about 5 minutes, we got the response. The spirit was none other than Neha's friend, who had died in a car accident a few years ago. That friend's name was Amit. He replied to her queries and questions. He even predicted about our futures, which are true. Suddenly, Neha fainted. We all got scared and tried to wake her up. She's a patient of migraine. We all thought maybe she got a migraine attack, but that wasn't true. Her head was on my lap, and I tried my best to wake her up. I closed her nose so that she would regain consciousness, and suddenly she woke up and narrated something that sent shivers down my spine. She told me that when she was in the unconscious state, she could hear us all talking. She told that after going into that unconscious state, she saw Amit, who took her to someone's house, where she saw that person's dead body, and then she regained consciousness. The person whose dead body she saw was her ex-boyfriend. I remember telling Amit not to harm him. After she awoke, we all kept our fingers on the coin to see if Amit was still there. He was there, and told us not to play the Ouija board again, as it is dangerous. It acts as a portal for evil spirits too. That was the last time I ever touched the Ouija board. What do you guys think about Ouija? There are a few more stories related to my experience with the Ouija, and other paranormal events, in which I will post later. A Ouija board changed my life. I want to start this off by saying, I've never believed in heaven or hell or any of the various other supernatural myths and legends. Ever since I was young, science has been my bias. And even after everything that happened in the story that is about to follow, I think it still is. Even after everything, I'm still not sure I believe it, but what I do know is that it was real. I felt it. I saw it. In my junior year of high school, around 2011 or 2012, I can't exactly remember what year, but I know it was within that time frame. My friends and I were into doing a lot of stupid things that teenagers tend to do, you name it. We more than likely did it. Just like every other stupid teen, drinking and partying was our favorite pastime, especially on the weekends. However, one weekend of being a stupid teenager that changed my life forever, I'm not really sure where to start. So I'm just going to jump in by walking through the night Our group got together, about 5 of us, and we somehow all came up with the decision that we gotta go explore in our state's most haunted cemetery. Why not, right? Something fun to do in our small city, I guess. One of my friends had a Ouija board, but she decided it'd be fun to do it while we partied. We loaded up my car with all the alcohol, weed, and of course that damn Ouija board, and we're looking forward to a good night. Fast forward to about 30 minutes later, we're on the clear opposite side of our city, and we're in the middle of literally nowhere. No lights, no houses, just the stars and the headlights, lighting our way down this admittedly creepy, winding road. Now, a little backstory about the cemetery first. Like I said before, it is said to be the most haunted in our state, and it's been investigated by several paranormal investigators and teams, and all of them have come up with the conclusion that there is indeed something there. Eyewitness testimonies state nearly the exact kind of phenomenon, a force pushing you off the wall that surrounds a cemetery if you decide to try to walk on it, a shadowy figure that lurks in the woods in the back, mysterious orbs showing up in photographs, etc. This graveyard is the resting place of hundreds of people, from old governors, children, to Civil War soldiers who died in battle. The oldest grave there was reported to go back to the 1700s. It was reportedly gorgeous and well-maintained back in its prime, but had since fallen apart, and nobody watches the grounds or does any sort of monitoring. For the curious who go visit it, they have to park their car on the main road, aka the only road that leads through the side of town it's on, climb a chain that is meant to keep people out, and then walk down a 2-mile dirt road that leads to the front gates. Once at the gates, you have to climb the infamous 5-foot brick wall that surrounds the cemetery, as the front gates are chain locked. We pulled up to the dirt road, we got out, and started our trek. Once at the front gates, I don't know if anyone else felt it, but I could immediately feel that something was off. But something drew me in. We all helped each other over the wall, and once we were all inside, the party began. We ran around, screaming and yelling for the ghost to come at us. We went hunting for the shadowy figure that was supposed to have been seen. We walked around the wall, and the only time anyone felt off was because they were too drunk to keep their balance. Needless to say, none of us saw anything, none of us heard anything, and no one had been pushed off the wall by invisible hands or anything like that. We then decided to give the Ouija board a go. With the Ouija board in my hand, something drew me to a grave that was a little way towards the very center of the cemetery. We all sat around the grave, and of course, we placed the board on top of it. We asked the typical questions, and as we expected, nothing happened. Eventually, we got bored, sober, and out of things to do, so we all decided to head home. I dropped everything off at home, and then I got back to my house. I passed out. The next few days went by, and they were just normal school days, but then something changed. One night, I went to sleep, and my life changed forever. I woke up from my sleep, or at least I thought I did, but I quickly learned that I hadn't. I will always remember how vivid it was, and how it felt to look at myself sleeping in my bed. Whatever this place was real. It wasn't a dream, and it wasn't real life. I was looking at real life. After a few moments of looking around my bed and watching myself sound asleep, something began pulling me towards my window, which is right next to my bed. I remember thinking, I can't go to the window, the bed is in the way, but then it wasn't. I didn't go around my bed. I wasn't standing on top of my bed, I was through my bed. Before I could process what was going on, my hand began to reach for my curtain and I tried to fight it, feeling fear begin to engulf my body. It was no use trying to resent it though. My hand drew back the curtain, and my eyes were glued out onto the street and to the streetlights that stands right outside my window. There stood a little boy, no more than 4 years old, just looking at me. He wore clothes from an older time, that was obvious. But before I could really come up with an explanation, something grabbed his hand and pulled him away. I woke up instantly and saw that it was time for me to get ready for school, however, and I remember everything that just happened. Whatever I saw, it was and still is ingrained inside me. I tried to not think about it. I tried to just tell myself that it was a dream, but that did not do any good. For the next few nights, I had the exact same dream, or whatever you want to call it, and after about a week or so, it changed. Instead of having the urge to look out my window, I was looking at myself sound asleep in my bed, with my back towards my open door. Yes, this fact is important later on. Something told me to turn around, and so I did. There he was, The little boy was standing in my room. He reached his hand up to me, and he looked like he was scared. I reached for his hand, but when I came within centimeters from grabbing it, the little boy changed. He was no longer a little boy. I have no fucking clue what he turned into, but whatever it was dark, evil, and full of hatred. It wasn't another being, it was just a dark cloud. I remember screaming, but as I screamed, there was no noise, no commotion, nothing. Nobody came rushing into my room to ask what was wrong, and then seconds later, I just woke up in my bed like a child wakes up from a nightmare. I looked around and turned all my lights on. There was nothing there. This horrible reoccurring nightmare happened for the next few nights, and eventually I refused to sleep. I got sick, depressed, anxious. I stopped eating. I quit taking care of myself. My grades slipped, and I started becoming an angry person. It got to the point that I felt I needed to go to church, me, someone who has never been to church and had no other option left. I need to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. I sat down and talked to a priest and explained everything to him. He asked me if I had ever dwelled and studied or investigated in anything demonic or paranormal in general. Then I remember the cemetery, my oh shit moment, was clearly picked up by him. And we asked what we all did. And so I told him. He explained how spirits can be brought into the world through things like that. Now, the priest isn't a demonologist and he doesn't investigate in anything paranormal, so he was little to no help in trying to find a solution. He merely just reminded me of that one night. I called my friend when I left, and because it was still daylight outside, I talked her into going back to the graveyard with me, and on the way there, I explained everything to her. She'd always been religious, so she believed me. We got back out there, and once we were in the cemetery, I walked back to the grave that we had done the Ouija board on, and there he was. His name was Samuel Diamond, born 1859, died 1863, 4 years old. I rushed home, did my research, and I began looking into legends, myths, solutions, and testimonies. One solution I came across was to burn the Ouija board. The fucking Ouija board that I completely forgot about was still sitting in the trunk of my car. Without a second thought, I started the fire pit in my backyard and I threw it in, anxious to rid myself of whatever was going on, but then it got worse. I guess worse isn't really the correct term to use. I guess you could say it stayed consistent. Yes, the weird out-of-body dreams did in fact stop, but something else took its place. Feelings. Not your typical emotions, but more like sensing. Ever since I burned that Ouija board, and even now to this day, I can't stop sensing. If you know the feeling of being able to tell that someone is looking at you, then you know what I'm talking about. Whatever time of day it is, wherever I am, and whatever I am doing, if there is something or someone there, I can feel them. At night, I can't fall asleep if my back is towards my open door, and if I happen to turn that way in my sleep, then I immediately wake up. If I'm lying in bed, trying to fall asleep or just relaxing. Sometimes I feel like if I turn to look at what is driving a hole through me with its eyes, then I might be killed. Sometimes if I'm wide awake or trying to sleep, it feels like my neck will literally be broken if I turn around. Sometimes tears from fear start rolling down my face. I'll admit, these extreme cases haven't happened in a long time, but the mild ones still do. Upon further investigation, I read that burning a Ouija board, while it can be useful once the user has said goodbye, can release everything that was trapped inside of it through the initial use. I made a mistake when I was a stupid teenager, and I didn't fix it in the right way. For that, my life has forever changed. I've come to realize that the world is more complex than we can imagine, and there are no limits when it comes to the physical plane. The deepness of our universe and all the different layers of all the different planes are beyond human imagination. Anything is literally possible. There are some things out there, and this goes against everything that I can explain and believe, that can't and will never actually be proven by sciences. Sometimes the only proof you can get is the proof that is personally given to you, even if it means that it's presented with a beautifully wrapped box with nothing but darkness inside of it. Goodbye and rest in peace, Samuel Diamond, 1859 to 1863. Ouija boards aren't toys. This story isn't mine. It is a story of not only my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law as well. This happened to both of them years ago, before my fiance was born, so 20 plus years ago, in a small town in California called Blythe. It's very close to the border where Arizona and California meet. Melissa and Dallas are divorced now, but I've heard the story from both of them, and the story is quite chilling. Melissa and Dallas were living in a house with Dallas's brother Mark. Well, Mark got together with some friends while Dallas and Melissa were out, and they went down to the basement, which was his room, and played with a Ouija board. I cannot tell you what question they may have asked or what may have happened, but I'm sure they didn't take any precautions, going off on a lark, just trying to spook each other with that sort of thing. But I can tell you the outcome of all this. One day, Melissa went down into the basement to wash some laundry. Mark was at work. Well, she saw herself in the mirror, but got scared because it was dark down there, so she just kind of ran up the steps. When she got to the top, her husband noticed she was a bit startled, so he asked her what was wrong. She said she just got scared because she saw her reflection in the mirror in the basement. Dallas said, "There is no mirror in the basement." Sure enough, there wasn't. Dallas and Melissa both told me they had this dream in that house, and that it was the exact same dream. They dreamt that a dark entity came to them at night while they were asleep and kept trying to take their souls. They could feel it inside of them and trying to take over, and it was a terrible struggle to get free. Once free, you awoke totally drained. Other friends that had slept over claimed to have the same dream. Mark had a pit bull that would stay in the basement all day long and wait for him to get home from work. Well, one day, the dog just snapped. When Melissa went down to do some laundry, the dog ran out of there and killed Melissa and Dallas's dog. Melissa said the dogs were best friends since they were puppies, but the dog slaughtered him. And she said afterwards, he was pacing around the house like a caged tiger. Mark was scared of the dog after that, and had put him down. Maybe the dog was just aggressive. I know pit bulls have a bad rep. Or maybe it was easier for the entity to enter the dog. Either way, I believe they opened a door to something evil. Ouija boards are like reaching into a closet door into a different dimension. And what you pull out can be bad, good, or in between. You just never know, but they definitely should be never used as toys.